这就不做那平面上，都能不能真不那边。那个当刚咱都是么多，东巴推这讲那给上层。假如这样对象少把用怎么样来的呢？什么第一次？但比去รับ等几个人家人呢？像就三话全部去进南庄的รับ的东边都翻了对阿拉那边喏。对阿拉那边春夏都离了有东老王的西子。现在拉多那样，现在老那就比错误让人家买的给弄出嘛，现在拉个人嘛写的，没人把就，现在推荐他吧，现在给弄个忙么的，没人把就像这个拉是个人的西巴买喏，这就是艰难的。对方那拉那边是的拉去年的工厂老板那了。판독바 담작도바 메버주도도 머서장저 제장냥 도지 타발 람돈데 진에 상지지 20금버도 버상제와 데스타와 람도노 데네 존든데지티 츠즈자바데 도과자르도 그바데라 터던니 버는저 데란데네 데진 추장돈 상장 예도 공부 사초서 양버탄나라도 샴당arte zambu tsongi lagbara kabjirwa chuku tsama tena rabgu ne darzan nagbo tevjin shamshi la shantab chetsa lagbar rab gu ne tsu rirnam na tsu lagtang be irkan tenab chebi chala rabndu chan irkan ba lagbar chite irtan zag ne mgo tam jimbi dang ravnan jang chujistan tela rabtanda ramdik te semjin lagbar zir chikirna Namla Altamar number not so near to no gelon to gelon marnum down giving Madam giving mother giving number giving mother down Gerbo to Gero Nalayam Kate Tog Chokto Mapern not so to the Nyam Bictamian stone TCT la Tetoji Chine de Domton be Tonum Raptorton Jenny to be Shanship Tobra and Gerard Terton number Raptorton Lilo Tagjan number Rapane, Stun Stuart Nyambindashi, Kidmajam, Kipimaka, Tamchid, number of pounds, Chamber Tobnan Kurla Gumbra, Shan, Yamzan, Chumcho Raptor, Gumam, Kipatin, Shia, Chokwe, Cornum Gojan, Dejan Gavra Shida, Dina Navion, Dopa Chons, the Meda, Zedan, Kumdam, Zadan, Javadan, Kudan, Marcha. Chugur namdang na surman tagja mapsamte ngornum lana chijang marmango jandam kebar tagdab dagnyatang semjan namna dartar sanjin jabar shogo devshirin jikten chugang tambati udakab devi yoshit gumnyam sem gelon gandam nyan deni nam chato me barandana raptun ba delar dengar mechang varchida meda nam nyan da jangchigba Meda de las yardang ma shete dopa me chamnir mawa meda tina namyo chapar manjirte ndarterte ne zuperto la ne tagdam ke partala ne ba te chirtring yeshit uni ba yanam ke ba shia yondam shia tamam jwa te te ne kara kyariam judma ni jan khora janna debjin shoba yonsum ningalende ne tambichu zapiti gitsenam dordendan chang yushan chuzwa changwa chembo Chagdong Yurgi me padam Shanju Senwa. Shanju Senwa Taba Janji Ganzak Jandala Martin Bamar Markaraman, Deve Nibrama Shadow Geloma, Givin Mada, Yantuji Taba Jan Namran Sanji Taba Jan, Shanju Senwa Taba Jan Jandala, Yoba Kibra Mershite, Rigive de Dolana me Bayan Dobozoba Shancha, Rante, Kidna Tirter Marno, Kidna Raptor. Verme prane parte, kierna tevjan sharabi yeshim ngumbar rzobar tsang gyawam to medo jibi shanjib zang hui taba gangla de tezum kibra mafshi de chuji zoba la gawa mayan de chular zobar mafshi do semchen tamchil la shenbi shto mamtung tevjan shaba tamchil la pard doshi bar kedo shanjib zang wa tamchil la tombar doshi kedo chokjin jikten na shanjib zang wa chenbo gangdang kopa tetagla yamma chabar thawbi sambi kibar Shamsarlo, Chunchapana, Lakchet Maper Chunchado, Chuji Namjanda Raptor Tambana, Chuji Gawa Number Shete, Tana Gawa Zamlayan, Tananga Zamlayan, Chuji Gavel Hopper Pando Persian. Tananga Zamlayan, Chuji Tananga Zamlayan, Chuji Gavel Hopper Pando Persian. Jahor Chu, Doxam Dan Dambe Janju, Zanwa Zanwa, Jimbo de Janjoba Yonsum, Ning, Lende, Netambe Chu, Zapitam, Tigize, Chuji Namjan, the Torian Raptor Tombana, they were Rabala, Jan Zeba Meberchuji Namjan, the Taverton de Tice, Chuyang Topran Rover, Chokto Yam Jon Euro, Cantotela, Chunian business. 正的年八等、大八等、一七八等、增八等、跟的七八等、一个人这八等、一个人真几八等。好了，我们都写的，这东西八等、增不是八等、人主是八等、全部是八等，这我们中等的几点个几个在的，这个设备点个从呢，东北这样点个几个在都刚性东等吃的。都的出马位，有等阿姐devin吃了的，马里玩的用手帮着些devin。Kibim Chaktojan Mosha, Namda Sala Mohnin, Jud Mosha, Tavisopa, Navia Moshago, Lamishi, Kyoto, Tova, Mangira, J, Teton, Navia Moshago, then a start the Tanjam Nimbate, they were so by they were so dear Zot, Erdanan Gira, Chunda Yang, the Rapton Yang, Tender, Joe and Jera Jones, the Medicines of San Juan, the Chopchi. Yi en ji den dang na sem chen nyang zi en je re de dao da ge tun ji de da lam ke bar nam nam lam ki ba ke de san dir kan nim chog nam jam re shi ya ra nam lar ta da pan sem ke de ngar jir de shi tam jir nam bar de ce de la war chen jong mon je re na ban dan de chun de tu ne nam ke be de ce lag bar zhong re sha de ro ne bi shir nam nyam jang na zhang zhong zhog zhig shi we rap de zhong bar je
Next, we will teach the Lotus Sutra. This chapter primarily teaches the 4 kinds of ease in practice, that is, the 4 kinds of abiding. Previously, we covered body, speech, mind, and making vows. If any bodhisattva abides in these 4 great practices of ease, then this bodhisattva will be able to propagate the Lotus Sutra. Previously, in the abiding of body, we taught 2 aspects. One is the sphere of practice, and the other is the sphere of relationships. The sphere of practice primarily teaches cultivating patience and speaking gentle words. In the worldly sense, one should have no fear when encountering any difficulty. From the ultimate perspective, everything is unattainable without grasping or rejecting. As for the sphere of relationships, that is to say, staying far away from all inappropriate objects among groups of people, including kings and others, there are distracting factors such as singing and dancing, as well as noisy environments and so forth. From the ultimate perspective, we taught the 18 kinds of emptiness. The last class primarily taught this principle. Now, in the verses, there is a passage, moreover, they do not practice the superior, mediocre, or inferior teachings. Starting from that passage. Previously, we had the first sphere, the sphere of practice, and the second sphere, called the sphere of relationships. These are the 2 spheres. Among them, the earlier sphere of practice that the bodhisattva relies upon, speaking from the perspective of ultimate unattainability, they do not practice the superior, mediocre, or inferior teachings. From the ultimate meaning, there are no such things as superior vehicle, mediocre vehicle, or inferior vehicle teachings. There are also no conditioned or unconditioned dharmas, nor real or unreal dharmas. There's also no discrimination between male and female, not acquiring any dharmas, not knowing, not seeing. There is nothing that can be known, nothing that can be seen, just as taught in the beacon of certainty. Not seeing is the meaning of the supreme view. In fact, not seeing is also a kind of supreme view. In the Vimalakarti Sutra, there is a special chapter called Entering the Gate of Non-Duality. In the chapter on entering the gate of non-duality, there are 32 bodhisattvas who each present their own perspectives, analyzing from the aspect of non-duality. It seems the last one is Bodhisattva Manjushur. So truly whether it is or is not, whether male or female, in the ultimate meaning of the Dharma nature, there is nothing that can be attained. The Durgagama Sutra says, if one studies the decisive teachings and knows that all dharmas are without self, this is the supreme among teachings, turning the wheel of dharma through wisdom. As for turning the wheel of dharma through wisdom, what one attains among all dharmas is selflessness, emptiness, and unreality. Just as taught in the wisdom chapter of the Way of the Bodhisattva, here there are no marks. That is the view that all dharmas are without marks. So what is this? It is the sphere of practice of the Bodhisattva. In the ultimate meaning, the sphere of practice of the Bodhisattva should be like this. Furthermore, all dharmas are empty, without substance, without permanence. There is also no arising or ceasing. There is no such thing as this being produced or that being destroyed. Therefore, this is called the sphere of relationships of the wise. There is nothing that can be attained. The other day I also mentioned, which is taught in the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. In our Tibetan language, there are many words for like. I counted, there are 6. Silver means like an illusion, also like a dream, like a Gandharva city. Production, abiding, and cessation are also like this in their characteristics. Here, like appears only a few times, but in Tibetan there are 6. Like an illusion, also like a dream, like a Gandharva city has 3 likes. Thus is production, thus is cessation. It seems it doesn't work in Chinese. In any case, in Tibetan it has this. So the bodhisattvas generally truly abide in such states. This verse is actually very meaningful. Do these things exist in our real life? For those who have realized Madhyamaka, if you ask whether they exist or not, they exist. What exists? Illusory phenomena exist. Is there any real meaning? No. Why? Because for every dharma, we ourselves think it is this dharma, but actually, when we use the wisdom of Madhyamaka, the turning the wheel of dharma through wisdom, I just mentioned, when we turn the wheel of dharma through wisdom and analyze with wisdom, indeed, you cannot find it. Whether it is the mark of male or female, whether it is red or white, or any real mark, our habitual concepts, habitual designations, and conceptual thoughts cannot attain the reality of what you wish to attain. Therefore, at this time, it is best for us to use the 12 great analogies of illusion found in Buddhism. This is a very excellent method for realizing emptiness. Likewise, there is no erroneous discrimination, and dharmas also do not exist. Similarly, the reality or unreality of dharmas, production or cessation, production and non-production, all of these are unattainable. In Tibetan, there is a negation word at the beginning. There is no erroneous discrimination. There are no dharmas. There is no is or is not. Neither production nor non-production exists. In a tranquil, pure, and quiet place, we should rest our minds in one place, gathering our minds and abiding unmoved like Mount Sumeru. When observing the nature of all dharmas, indeed they are completely unattainable, like empty space. At that time, all these dharmas we now consider to be solid have no solidity at all. Not produced, not emerged, not moved, not retreated, abiding in the single mark. What mark is this? Constantly abiding in the state beyond the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, equally pure and non-dual. At that time, gazing upon the empty space before you, even when your own mind is moving with thoughts, maintain the certainty of its emptiness. Didn't Mifam Rinpoche teach that when we gaze directly at the empty space before us, the empty space is completely unattainable? When you gaze directly at the empty space before you, it is completely unattainable. Similarly, when you turn inward and observe your own mind, when your own mind is arising in thoughts, its essential nature is also completely unattainable. In many respects, it is quite similar to empty space. In this state, everything seems to be unattainable. If nothing is attained, illusions exist, but these illusions are deceptive, not real. Therefore, in our true practice, in a tranquil place, or in a place where there is no disturbance to oneself, of course, some people who study well, when they reach a certain point and become stable, even if there are disturbances, it doesn't matter. In noisy surroundings, with loud sounds nearby, all of this should not matter. My realization seems not to be very high, but when I go out, the sound of of cars at night nearby doesn't seem to affect my sleep. I'm not really practicing, but wherever I go, perhaps because I'm quite tired, some people say, this hotel is so noisy I can't sleep, it's so painful. There's a dance hall below this hotel. The singing is so loud. Some practitioners find it especially annoying, but I feel it's still okay. Listening to beautiful music is also quite nice. I treat it as background music. Some hotels are of rather poor quality, with especially poor soundproofing. You can hear everything from the dancing and singing downstairs, but it seems not to affect my sleep. Whether it affects my practice, I haven't tried yet. The impact should not be significant. The Mahayana Sutra of the Perfection of the Six Paramitas says, unattached to gain or loss, unmoved by joy or worry, abiding like Mount Sumeru, this is the true wise one. If we abide like Mount Sumeru, worldly gains and losses, joys and angers, sorrows, all of these will be completely immovable for such a person. Actually, when a practitioner reaches that state, they should be very joyful. Some time ago, I posted a Weibo message saying that for people whose practice is good, everything is a favorable condition. For people whose practice is not good, everything is an adverse condition, whether it's the people around you, things, or events that occur. For people whose practice is not good, every day is especially painful. For people whose practice is good, regardless of the circumstances, perhaps the most painful place in the human realm is prison. Even if you are locked in prison for someone whose practice is good, they can practice repentance and contemplate emptiness, generate compassion for the prison guards, contemplate the karma of past lives, meditate themselves, and abide in practice. They can even treat it as a retreat chamber, and so forth. The most cruel place in the human realm should be prison. After that comes the hells of future lives. But for people whose practice is not good, even if you stay in a 5-star or 7-star hotel, I see some people in the West with especially good conditions who are especially miserable in their hearts. Not for a single moment, not for an instant is there any happiness. Therefore, sometimes our so-called happiness and suffering do not entirely depend on external objects. Most of it depends on our own minds. Especially for people whose practice is relatively better, all of these things have no particularly great effect. The Sutra of the Inquiry of the Deva Son Sustitamati says, all dharmas are like illusions, all arise from discrimination. This is not definitely existent. This is also a Mahayana Sutra, saying that everything is like an illusion, all arising from conceptual thoughts. Actually, it is our conceptual thoughts that are at work. Therefore, worldly suffering and happiness continually appear. In these respects, everyone should be very clear. If there are monks, the Buddha said, after my parinirvana, if there are monks or nuns who enter the sphere of practice mentioned above, or enter the sphere of relationships mentioned above, when teaching the Lotus Sutra, they will have no fear. Of course, if you have the view of emptiness, if you have the state of the sphere of relationships and sphere of practice mentioned above, then no matter where you go, whether teaching the Lotus Sutra or teaching other sutras, you will have no fear, no worry. Otherwise, some of us say, I need to prepare to go out tomorrow to teach. Please bless me. In their hearts, they have no sense of security and feel especially nervous. They don't know if this time will be successful. If it's not successful, I'm especially worried. I didn't sleep well last night, and I won't sleep well tonight either. Perhaps when I really have to teach tomorrow, maybe I'll collapse. Will I? I'm especially worried. Perhaps when one's realization is not high, being anxious about gains and losses, indeed there is a bit of a lack of security. But if you reach a certain level of realization, especially what was mentioned above, with the view of emptiness in the sphere of relationships and sphere of practice, then regardless of when, there is no fear, no timid mind. Sometimes bodhisattvas enter such tranquil retreat places. With correct mindfulness and awareness, they remember the Buddha and meditate according to the meanings of the Dharma taught by the Buddha. Actually, no matter where we go to propagate the Dharma and benefit sentient beings or begin teaching sutras ourselves, whatever we do, firstly, to do the praying is very important. Pray to the root guru, pray to the Dharma protectors, pray to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. After this, you can settle your mind, just like some entrepreneurs in the West nowadays, before going to work or before meetings, they sit quietly for a while. Steve Jobs always did this. Before he goes to work, he first washes his mind. They call it mind-washing yoga. They wash away the mind and rest it for a while. So generally, when we propagate propagate the Dharma and benefit beings or even recite texts, at these times we should first properly contemplate the Dharma. Then, after arising from such meditation, whether for kings, princes, ministers, or Brahmans and so forth, regardless of what status they are at, whether business people, presidents, leaders, public security officers, firefighters, any kind of person can be taught the Dharma as long as they have faith. Kings, ministers, Brahmans, and so forth. Look here at Brahmans. Generally, some of us Buddhists say, we can only teach to Buddhists, not necessarily to other centers or other religious schools. Actually, the Dharma has no hierarchy. We should be able to create positive connections with every sentient being. By explaining the Lotus Sutra or other sutras to them, your mind will be at ease, at peace, with a sense of security, without timid mind, without fear. If before teaching you settle your mind and pray, and you have no selfish motives and thinking, my motivation is very pure. It's not for gaining wealth in the future, nor is it for gaining fame. It's not like that. My mind is still very pure. Then when we teach the Dharma, we have no fear. If I have selfish motives or impure intentions, then it's hard to say about this mind. Therefore, generally, when transmitting the Dharma, we should teach to all sentient beings. On one hand, it is indeed very convenient now. If everyone can hear even one Dharma class, it's very good. In the past, in Han areas, there was also this kind of thing called unrestricted Dharma assembly. There are no restrictions. Any kind of person, any status of person, can participate and receive benefits. Some unrestricted Dharma assemblies, they serve some 8 treasure porridge or serve some soup. Most of them are hoping for this, but this may not be very important. Whether you drink a bowl of soup or a bowl of porridge, it's fine either way. But most importantly, when our sentient beings come into this world, we should encounter the Mahayana Dharma gates and emptiness teachings that can destroy our self-grasping. If we can hear them even once, it's also very important, especially nowadays that sometimes it should be considered quite convenient. I have always believed that receiving Dharma through the internet is especially good for now. In the past, when we sought the Dharma, we had to face many problems indeed. Only in this way we could have opportunities. But now, many people should be able to hear courses from any classroom. If they can all hear them, this is an especially good opportunity. So I think generally we are also frequently holding unrestricted Great Dharma assemblies. During unrestricted Great Dharma assemblies, you should also not abandon your own connections. Some people without merit may have it at the beginnings. Some people lack merit, while some people's character is unstable. People with unstable character can often be seen. Didn't I mention the other day, don't forget your initial aspiration. What was your state of mind at the beginning? What was it like in the middle? What did it become in the end? This shouldn't need to be said by others. You should observe your own mind yourself. Perhaps you have some seemingly reasonable explanations, but regardless, what you decided at the beginning and what it became at the end should be very clear to you. Therefore, we talk about all the content in such unrestricted great Dharma assemblies. Bodhisattva Manjushra, such bodhisattvas should abide in this initial Dharma, what we call the first abiding. These people can expound the supremely wondrous Lotus Sutra in the future world. So, up to this point, in this chapter, among the 4 teachings of ease in practice, we've covered the first one. It seems the method here is that each one has a prose section followed by verses. Among these 4 dharmas, the last one is slightly longer. After this is complete, this chapter will be finished. Next, it says, Bodhisattva Manjushuru, after the Tathagata's parinirvana, in the future age of the decadent Dharma, if anyone wishes to teach this sutra, the Lotus Sutra, then they should abide in this ease in practice. Because the ease in practice of body has already been taught, the following should be the ease in practice of speech. If anyone orally teaches the Lotus Sutra or recites the Lotus Sutra, they should not take pleasure in speaking of others' faults or speaking of the faults of the sutras that others teach. When we teach the Lotus Sutra or when we teach other Mahayana sutras, we should try our best not to speak of others' rights and wrongs. We also should not belittle other Dharma teachers, saying this Dharma teacher is not good, that Dharma teacher is not good. Some of us, when someone is teaching, they don't teach what should be taught, but instead spend all day talking about rights and wrongs, talking about faults of others. We also should not speak of others' good qualities or faults, their strengths or weaknesses. Actually here, speaking of good qualities can sometimes be acceptable. But generally, people who love to speak of rights and wrongs also love to talk about strengths and weaknesses. Also regarding Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas, we should not name them and speak of their faults. nor should we especially praise and extol them. Furthermore, we should not generate resentment toward them or any particular feelings of disgust. We cannot let such feelings arise. Therefore, what we teach here, which I also mentioned a while ago, that in any group, any Buddhist group actually, the quality of the entire group is very important. Some people say it's very chaotic here, it's very bad here, it's especially troublesome here. Actually, it's your own mind that's causing trouble. Actually, regardless of the situation, if our practice is relatively good, just as we mentioned earlier, there won't be so many troublesome matters. Especially now when we study Buddhism, I personally believe that is relatively pure. We don't involve ourselves in politics, economics, violence, and so forth. We have no content related to management or these matters at all. It's just very pure study and practice place, hoping everyone can resolve their own life issues through the truth of the Dharma. So in this case, if some people constantly speak of others' faults, indeed it's also not good. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish says, evil people in the world, upon hearing the names of good people, generate jealousy and hatred in their minds. Hearing of evil, they rejoice. When evil people in the world hear the names of good people, they especially generate jealousy and hatred in their minds. If they hear the names of evil people, they are especially delighted. We can see that people are like this. Including some people at our current Dharma assemblies, they often don't practice well what they should practice, but spend all day talking about others' rights and wrongs when they shouldn't. Those who love to talk about others' rights and wrongs show that their own practice is indeed not good. The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch says, if one truly practices the path, one does not see the faults of the world. If one sees others' wrongs, one's own wrongs are left. If we especially see others' rights and wrongs, it shows that we have errors, deviations, and faults. If one is a real practitioner, they won't see the faults of the world. In their eyes, everyone is like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. They are all very good people. I especially like the teachings of the Sixth Patriarch. Although sometimes in class, for certain purposes, I also have to say some things, including pointing out some people's faults, some people's situations that have to be mentioned. If I don't speak directly, but only hint indirectly, some dull people simply cannot understand at all. So if I speak directly, perhaps it can change some people's character. But from my own heart, there should be all kinds of worldly people and all kinds of bodhisattvas in our world. So for true practitioners, they fundamentally cannot see the faults of the world. If they see worldly rights and wrongs, if they see some faults in the world, it shows that they have problems as well. Therefore here, everyone should also be clear. Especially now in our study groups, there are many people, we can say the vast majority of people, 80 to 90%, are especially good at study, contemplation, and practice. Everyone does what they can do, and if they truly have no karmic connection, they won't create a lot of rights and wrongs within the group. But there are indeed individual people who exist at any time. It has always been like this. But indeed, there are individual people who constantly complain. In some places, some people tell me, it's very chaotic in our place, it's very complicated in our place. That shows that you are included in the complexity in your heart. Because people who love to speak like this are very complicated themselves. Some people's practice is especially poor. Because their practice is especially poor, they see others' actions as all bad. Plus, they have many of their own private matters mixed in. In such case, problems will certainly appear. There's nothing to be said about this. Therefore, in the future, I hope that if you can study, please study hard. If you cannot study, don't cause trouble for many Dharma friends. If you quietly withdraw, we also have nothing to say. It's not that we absolutely need one more person. If some people's character is not good, initially there may be some hope for them, but in the end, as you get closer to them, they increasingly reveal their true nature. It's like eating sugarcane. It's nothing remarkable. Therefore here, for true practitioners, because of this ease of mind, all these listeners will not oppose those who can truly teach the Lotus Sutra. Because of their ease of mind, they won't be jealous of listeners or refuse to transmit the Dharma to them. Without generating jealousy, without violating their wishes, they try their best to satisfy them. If they raise some questions or doubts, we should not answer them using the inferior vehicle method. Why? Because if we answer them using the inferior vehicle method, they may remain in samsara for a very long time, or it could be said that they are unable to give rise to the mind of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, we should explain to them with Mahayana views, enabling them to certainly attain omniscience. In this regard, I may not do very well. In the past, sometimes when I saw that some people's faculties were indeed not very good, or they could only have humanistic Buddhism, or some Śrāvaka vehicle and there was no other way, I didn't dare teach them Mahayana, much less Vajrayana. I tried my best to use some Śrāvaka vehicle teachings or use some worldly concepts, saying, oh, that's fine. For now you can do it this way. Gradually, slowly, it should get better. Perhaps this is also a bit better, but the viewpoint here is that if others ask questions, we should answer them with Mahayana Buddhist principles. But some may not be able to accept it. Some should be able to accept it through this method. So the principle here is relatively strong. In the future, when we answer questions, we should not simply accommodate them. Regardless of whether they accept it or not, we just completely do not follow them. Some of our Dharma friends who study Vajrayana, regardless of the other person's situation, always speak about Vajrayana principles. As soon as they open their mouths, they talk about Vajrayana practices. But this is also a kind of principle. Actually, as Mahayana practitioners, regarding others any questions, we can also use Mahayana viewpoints to explain to them. Below, the Buddha uses verses to give a brief answer to the principles above. Bodhisattvas constantly delight in teaching the Dharma at ease and in peace, not teaching with suffering, not teaching reluctantly, not teaching unhappily, not teaching under pressure. For Bodhisattvas, teaching the Dharma is a kind of enjoyment and also something very joyful. Moreover, the place for teaching should be very pure. First, clean the venue. If there is any dust, sweep it clean. Then place the Dharma seat and bed seat here. As for the Dharma teacher's own body, they should also apply various oils to their body, and through bathing, wash away all dirt completely. Then wear very new and clean, beautiful garments. Wear clothes well from both inside and outside, but if the inside hasn't been washed, that also won't do. Some people, although they wash quite cleanly, but they have a lot of grime on their clothing sleeves. You see, when we teach the Lotus Sutra and the Mahayana Dharma, as Dharma teachers, we should also possess very pure conditions, both inside and outside. A couple of days ago, I spoke especially to Tibetan people, but later some Han people didn't know what the Khenpo was saying, so I roughly translated about how to brush teeth. On the surface, many people brush their teeth, but it seems that they don't really know how to do that. When I'm watching from the side, some people's toothbrushing seems not very scientific. Then I spoke for a few minutes. Then about bathing, this also may need to be discussed. Yesterday I also discussed this a bit. Originally, monastics don't need to teach these things, nor do they need to speak about them, but indeed, in Tibetan areas, we probably need to say something in Tibetan, because sometimes hygiene conditions in Tibetan areas are poor. Some of these concepts need to change. Originally, Tibetans are a particularly lovely ethnic group, but in some places, conditions are indeed limited by the highland climate. So now in some places, I feel it's necessary to speak to them about this. Not just Tibetans, it seems many Han people are also not particularly clear. Because yesterday I talked about washing hands. Every time before eating, if you haven't washed your hands and directly eat food, now many scientists, mainly in America, have observed that if our hands haven't been washed for a day or two, there are over 800,000 bacteria on them. Under our fingernails, if they haven't been cleaned, there are 40 to 50,000 bacteria inside, and there are 150 types. If we ingest them, they all become disease-causing bacteria, which is especially frightening, like Indian people, because Indians generally eat like this. When drinking water, Indians drink water especially well. They have a teapot-like thing and directly shoot the water into their mouths from far away, just like that, very easily. They wash hands and eat all with their hands, but they still have a very good habit. Basically, every restaurant has hand-washing facilities. But many of our Tibetans people, when they eating tsampa or rice, they just directly knead it with their hands. I can see they don't wash their hands, including many of our Han people's food, which is also directly grabbed with hands. But if hands haven't been washed, indeed, that is unhealthy and shorten lifespan for the body. Like some people in Europe and America. In the past, people on average generally lived only 30 to 40 years. Now, because medical science is more advanced and hygiene conditions are better, people's concepts are different from before. It seems the average age can reach 60 to 70 years old. There is also this situation. Perhaps indeed in some places it will be like this. So regardless of the situation, whether in the precepts or in the Vajrayana, there is especially much teaching about maintaining cleanliness and hygiene. You see, here it also teaches that both inside and outside must be clean. Especially some Dharma teachers in our Tibetan areas, on the women's side, it may be slightly better. On the men's side, which is even worse, we are now have bathing facilities at the Larunga. Look, the bathhouses have 3 or 4 floors. So I hope our Dharma teachers should also occasionally go take a bath, right? Wear clean clothes. Otherwise, if conditions in Tibetan areas are not very good, when going to cities, originally when we went to Mount Wutai, at that time we didn't know. And indeed, at that time our hygiene was relatively poor. When we were on the subway, many people would do this. When I sat here, many people would do this. Later, I felt really embarrassed, so I also pretended to do this. So at that time, we are not paying attention on this concept of this aspect. Now it's slightly better, but there are some people, which is including some lay people, studying in Tibetan areas, and some monastics sometimes are limited by conditions. But I often say, especially in places where the weather is relatively hot, like in India, in the past when we went to India, morning and afternoon, at that time we bathed 3 times. Perhaps there was no air conditioning, conditions were relatively poor. Including His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok at that time, originally, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok wouldn't bathe every day because the elderly's health is also not too good. But during the period in India, basically bathed several times every day because it was too hot there. There was no other way. So when the weather is hot, everyone should pay attention about your own hygiene. Originally, this is about the hygiene aspects of Dharma teachers, but this is very important for every practitioner from my own perspective, especially now regarding our food. In these aspects, I don't need to say more. You all understand anyway. If there are monks and nuns, laymen and laywomen, as well as kings, princes, ministers, and common people coming to attend class, you should combine the subtle meanings of the Dharma with a pleasant and gentle demeanor to teach them. If you just tell jokes all day to make everyone very happy, but you don't combine the profound and subtle meanings of Buddhism, then it's nothing. After teaching, that's it. It has no meaning. If your attitude is especially bad, then during the entire class, everyone is dozing off. If your attitude is very bad, that also won't work. If you have a stern face every day, sometimes after class I get asked, why did you have a stern face today? So now, including on WeChat and Weibo, what happened to him today? He looks so pained. Why? So now, sometimes when I'm not very happy in my heart, I pretend to be happy on the surface. Is this a bit fake? But sometimes people probably can't tell whether I'm happy or unhappy today. Today, whether happy or unhappy, neither, just a bit tired. What I mean is, regardless of what kind of retinue you're teaching, you should combine the profound and subtle meanings of Buddhism to teach them. If some questions are raised before you, answer according to the meaning of the Dharma. If you can't answer, do not just handle it in some other way without care. That's not good. It should be according to the true meaning of Buddhism, using various analogies, various causes and conditions, various methods to teach them. Through these skillful means, enable them to generate the aspiration for supreme enlightenment. If you teach very well, if you answer very well, if you answer them especially well at that time, they will think, wow, this person teaches quite well. I want to generate bodhicitta. I want to begin to ordain. I want to go. Sometimes we may help them to generate their interest. For example, when going to schools, if you raise some questions and can truly resolve some of their doubts, at this time they become interested in this aspect and then immediately generate bodhicitta. Gradually their aspiration increases and then they enter the Buddha path. There are especially many such people. The Mahaprajaparamita Shastra says, sentient beings have 2 causes and conditions for attainment. One is having correct view internally. The other is having a teacher who skillfully teaches the Dharma externally. One is one's own internal inherent views, inherent correct views. The other is relying on external conditions, and the other is teaching well. Those causes and conditions of skillfully teaching the Dharma. The Mahaprajaparamita Shastra teaches this very well. Among these 2 kinds of causes and conditions, indeed if others ask questions, and of course if you truly can't answer, there's no other way. You might feel a bit hard when you answer. Indeed, sometimes there are those who deliberately make things difficult like this. For example, if next year I'm going to some country because sometimes the Dharma announcement gradually becomes known 3, 4, 5 or 6 months in advance. After they know, some people deliberately want to make things difficult. Others have already prepared for 6 months wanting to make things difficult for you and then keep waiting. When they ask at that time, they are also especially agitated. In the past, when I went, there were always someone who said, I heard a Kenpo from the Buddhist Institute is coming. I definitely want to embarrass him this time. They would prepare like this. Later, when they asked, it wasn't really so. After all, we've also studied some logic and know their attitude. There are also such cases. Some have this purpose, while some indeed have some doubts. So sometimes after class, it's necessary to ask some questions. In this way, mutually exploring together is very good. Here it also teaches that if there is such a case, then use various causes and conditions, analogies, stories, and also some case examples. Use these methods to enable them to accept it. Then they will also generate bodhicitta through this and gradually approach to the Buddha path, which is very good. Then in the process of teaching, one should dispel all thoughts of laziness and eliminate thoughts of slackness. As for laziness and slackness, in Tibetan, slackness seems to mean weariness of mind. One has a weary mind toward this. There may be two of these. Sometimes I see in many Han dictionaries that laziness and slackness have the same meaning. There is also this. But in Tibetan, it's about eliminating slackness, eliminating this kind of weary mind. Stay far from all worries and teach with loving kindness. Many of us, when tutoring others, when studying, when guiding others, first don't be lazy. I'm too tired. Forget it. Don't go. These people are quite troublesome. I generate a weary mind toward them. Also, I'm in a bad mood. I've been unhappy these past few days. I'm sad and so forth. Having many worried minds is also not very good. Teach them completely with a compassionate mind. With a compassionate mind, no matter how tired you are, how hard it is, how difficult regarding any of these matters in your life, you care very much about them. So teach with a compassionate mind, just as we taught yesterday in the earlier part, as taught in the Mahayana Sutra Lamkara about a tree. The root of benefiting sentient beings is primarily compassion. Then the tree trunk, tree root, tree branches, tree flowers, tree fruits, everyone should be very clear about these relationships. Therefore, teaching with loving kindness is very important. Moreover, when teaching the Dharma day and night, always teach the teachings of impermanence. When teaching, also use various different causes and conditions, innumerable analogies, and through various methods cause these sentient beings to rejoice. Each sentient being's faculties are different. It's best to cause them to generate some joy. If they don't have joy, others will find listening especially tiring. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, according to the preferences of their minds and faculties, teach the Dharma to bring them joy. According to people's minds, faculties, aspirations, and preferences, you should try your best to teach them Dharma that brings them joy. In this way, if they have joy towards Dharma, they accept it, and if it can truly bring change to their lives, then they will be willing to listen. If it cannot change them, cannot resolve some of their problems, then we also cannot possibly force them. Can you please come tonight? I want to give a class. I beg you, can you come listen to one class? If you listen to one class, I'll give you 333 yuan per class. Is that okay? That's not possible. We wouldn't say that either. But if you can truly resolve some of their own problems, if they gain something each time, and if they gain something, they generate joy. When they generate joy, they are willing to accept it. This is very important. But in the process of transmitting and teaching the Dharma, we absolutely cannot have this attitude. For example, seeking clothing, bedding, food, medicine, and so forth. You should not seek these things. Now, many people, in order to transmit the Dharma, first advertise, then solicit donations inside, collect funds inside, and so forth. Actually, this is very bad. This is called making the Dharma into a commodity for sale, and the fault is especially great. What should it be instead? Wholeheartedly, single-mindedly, for the reason of teaching the Dharma, enable oneself also to attain the Buddha path, and enable sentient beings also to attain the Buddha path. With this kind of intention, when transmitting the Dharma, there is only one purpose: to enable sentient beings to gain true benefit. This is the true great benefit. It can also be called enabling both sentient beings and oneself to attain peace, to attain the greatest offering. In the last chapter of the Vimalakirti Sutra, in Tibetan, the last teaching chapter, and these two are together, there is a chapter on the offering of Dharma. Here it teaches that among all offerings, the offering of Dharma is the most superior, the most sublime, the foremost. It is the best. Therefore, you should not add many things to it. If your attitude is truly to benefit sentient beings, and you teach others with this state of mind, this is the best, the most beneficial. The Buddha said, after my parinirvana, if there are monks who can expound this Lotus Sutra with minds free from jealousy, and also without any obstructions, without any sorrows, even if others slander them, they do not have fear, and if people harm them with various weapons and sticks, they also cannot be expelled. Why? Because the Dharma teacher abides in patience. Because they have patience, all the adverse conditions and obstacles in the process of teaching the Dharma for them are not really adverse conditions. The wise thus practice wholesome teachings and can abide in ease. This is what the Buddha taught above, abiding in ease. By relying on this method of abiding in ease to teach others the Dharma, the merit is very great. If you count it for thousands of hundreds of myriads of kalpas, it cannot be exhausted or fully described. It has especially great merit. As for what follows, there's a bit. Let's teach it. This is the second ease in practice. Next, we'll briefly teach one more time. The Buddha told Bodhisattva Manjushra, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, in the future age of the decadent Dharma, if some wish to preserve and recite this Lotus Sutra, their minds should not harbor jealousy, flattery, or deceitfulness. They also should not not belittle or slander other scholars, speaking of their faults. This is originally ease in practice of mind. Previously it was speech, but within this some differences are slightly similar. For example, in ease in practice of body, there are also aspects of mind. In ease in practice of speech, there are also some aspects of consciousness. Of course, this is primarily for body, primarily for speech, primarily for mind. They should not slander them or speak of their faults. If there are monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, and also those seeking the Śrāvaka path, those seeking the Pratyekabuddha path, and also those seeking the Bodhisattva path, with minds free from afflictions, and you cannot cause them trouble. Whatever path they seek, just let it be natural. You should not cause them to generate regret. Otherwise, in the Bodhisattva path, this also violates the root precepts. Among the 4 black dharmas, causing other practitioners to generate regret has especially great fault. You should not say to others, if you pursue the Śrāvaka path or Pratyekabuddha path, or if you seek the worldly path, then you're so far from becoming a Buddha. You'll never be able to attain omniscience. Why? Because your kind of practice is negligent. This kind of practice is slack. You cannot say this. Sometimes when we see others practicing the inferior vehicle, we should rejoice with them. If they study Tibetan Buddhism, we should rejoice with them. Oh, you study Tibetan Buddhism. Congratulations, congratulations. Tibetan Buddhism is very good. If others study Pure Land, Pure Land is very good. Reciting Amitabha's name, isn't that especially good? I'm also preparing to recite Amitabha's name. If others study Chan, studying Chan is excellent. If you study this way, you'll definitely attain realization. I also read the Shurangama Sutra before. It's especially good. Speak like this. You should not say, wow, if you practice and you should follow me. Otherwise, your practice method isn't very good. You're so far from becoming a Buddha. In this way, this is also very bad. Therefore, in terms of our methods and approaches, for those who have studied, contemplated, and practiced the Dharma, you can tell everything just from the way they speak. If you haven't studied, contemplated, and practiced, some people are especially ignorant, but in front of others they pretend to be especially knowledgeable. You shouldn't study. This teaching is such and such, clearly and openly slandering. This is very bad. So look here, you cannot say things like, why can't you study this? Because this is a way of negligence, this is a way of slackness. Also, one should not engage in hollow sophistries about various dharmas, constantly arguing endlessly. Here, hollow sophistries in Tibetan version, it refers to debating every day. Actually, now, for some of us who are true practitioners, it's still very important to make our practice the priority. Now, in our Tibetan Buddhism, not only do some monastics debate, but now many lay people have begun to debate. But I think sometimes it's better to just recite Vajrasattva 100 times, because sometimes it seems that, of course, debating is a way to explore the Dharma meanings. But sometimes these kinds of arguments, including some individuals at Larungar who talk about this every day from an academic perspective, if one is overly focused on this aspect, one will definitely become possessed by demons. In the past, some were indeed possessed by demons through scholarship and sophistry. It's very easy to be possessed by demons. Some Dharma teachers at Larungar, who have already obtained some academic degrees, gradually begin to become possessed by demons. In the end, there's no way to save them. They've already gone further and further from the path. They've gone further and further from the Dharma friends' views. As for the viewpoints and intentions of us who teach the Dharma, needless to say, in the end, no one can save them. There is also such a group of people. Those who engage in sophistry love to debate every day. At the entrance of our main assembly hall, it's best not to let people go inside to watch the debates. Otherwise, some lay people take photos all day. It's maybe troublesome. We have a lay person here who guards it every day saying, Ale, don't go in. He just keeps watching there. But if you really want to watch, that's fine too. Go have a look at what debate in Tibetan Buddhism is like. But actually others can't understand. They don't know what's being said. Just taking photos, taking videos, what use is that? Logically speaking, what should be most important? Actually generating various conceptual thoughts, the sophistries of greed, hatred, and delusion, researching and discussing these, none of this is especially useful. Of course, sometimes our academic research and exploration is useful in a certain sense, but for those who are excessive, some people's sophistries are especially severe. Their conceptual thinking is especially too strong. If you truly recite the King of Aspiration prayers, basically from beginning to end, you don't recite at all. Conceptual thoughts arise in the middle. They're especially pitiful. Logically speaking, one should generate compassionate thoughts toward all sentient beings and toward all Buddhas. Think of them as one's compassionate father. As for all Bodhisattvas, think of them as great teachers. Toward the Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, one should deeply and respectfully pay homage to them. Toward all sentient beings, teach the Dharma equally. Moreover, when teaching, follow the meaning of the Dharma, neither increasing nor decreasing, neither too much nor too little. What this means is, what should be taught must be taught. What shouldn't be taught, don't add many conceptual thoughts. What should be taught cannot be reduced. Some language in our sutras, if it accords with the sutra's meaning, accords with the Buddha's and Bodhisattva's intention, should not be reduced. But these conceptual thoughts that are unnecessary, there's no need to add them. Even for those who especially love the Dharma, also do not teach them too much. Of course, regarding this, the explanation methods in some Han commentaries may be somewhat different. What I mean is, even for those who especially love the Dharma, you also shouldn't speak too much to them. Some people say, I especially love to hear you teach. Could you possibly teach me one verse for 3 days? Oh, no problem, no problem. Some Dharma teachers, for the sake of their own eloquence, want to speak a lot on one topic. Actually, speaking this way with some preparation should all be possible. Talking about this and that, talking about everything, speaking while spending time like this. In the past, in Tibetan Buddhism, there was also this, but this is not particularly worthy of praise. Logically speaking, when teaching sutras, one should suit the aspirations of the listeners. This is very important, and it's not so that you can show off, my eloquence is very good, I express myself especially well, I'm widely learned, my doctrinal understanding is very rich. All of this is actually an impure mind. As for those receiving below, how much can they actually absorb? If it's too extensive, I feel it's very difficult for sentient beings in the age of the decadent Dharma. If it's too brief, it may also not be good. So look here, even for those who deeply love the Dharma, there's also no need to speak especially much. In the end, speaking too much just becomes verbose. Next, the Bodhisattva Manjushar, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas in the future age of the decadent Dharma, if they have accomplished this third ease in practice, in our future age of the decadent Dharma, what was just taught earlier about body, speech, and mind, if one accomplishes the third ease in practice, when teaching this Dharma, no one can disturb them. Moreover, they obtain many fellow practitioners who together recite this Lotus Sutra with them. They also obtain a great assembly who joyfully come to listen and receive. After listening, they can preserve it. After preserving, they can also recite it. After reciting, they can teach it to others. And then they can also copy it, enable others to copy it, and pay it homage, respectfully, honorably, and with praise. In this way, the content of the Dharma is also especially good. Below is also very simple. Let's also teach these verses. What was just taught earlier, in this way, the third ease in practice is complete. The Buddha elaborates on this meaning. If anyone wishes to teach this sutra, they should abandon jealousy, anger, and arrogance, as well as flattery, deceitfulness, false minds, and false conduct. Most importantly, they should always cultivate honest conduct. As practitioners, our own minds should be upright, our conduct should be upright, in accordance with the Dharma and principles, not deceitful, not spending all day in affliction, suffering, evil minds. Those who teach this Dharma should also be like this. Those who hear this Dharma should even more so be like this. After hearing this Dharma, at the very least, can one's former arrogance, wrong views, and jealousy be reduced? Can these be reduced? Originally, if you had 100 jinn of them, can you reduce them by 20 or 30 jinn? In this way, it's just like many people now who lose weight by eating one meal a day. Gradually, slowly, within 30 days, they lose 20 jinn. There are also such cases. So for us as well, after hearing over 60 classes on the Lotus Sutra, if our former afflictions were 80 jinn, can we now reduce them by 20 jinn? Check for yourself. Also, do not belittle others. Also, do not constantly engage in hollow debates about the Dharma, not practicing spending all day. Sometimes I'm indeed very disgusted by scholarship, spending all day talking about similar theories, especially those who have attended some universities before. Those with relatively strong conceptual thinking are very difficult to tame. Some Dharma teachers at our institute, those who have attended some schools before, have especially many conceptual thoughts, heavy wrong views. At the beginning, they all slightly accommodate on the surface, but gradually their character and sometimes change, especially quickly in various aspects. So don't spend all day in hollow sophistries. Then you should not cause others to generate regret, saying things like, you won't become a Buddha, you've practiced wrongly, and so forth. As true disciples of the Buddha, when teaching the Dharma, always use gentle language. You should have a patient mind in your mind stream. Moreover, be compassionate to all sentient beings and do not generate slack minds. Look, this sentence is very important. As heirs of the Buddha, when teaching the Dharma, one should use gentle language and oneself should be able to endure. One shouldn't, upon encountering the slightest thing, immediately change one's mind and abandon the Dharma. It should not be like this. The great Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, out of compassion for sentient beings, they practice the Mahayana Buddha path. We should generate immense respect toward them, treating them as our own great teachers. Regardless of the situation, all those who teach sutras in the 10 directions, whether Dharma teachers or bodhisattvas, we should all respect them without discrimination. Toward all Buddhas, generate the thought of them as the Supreme Father. Destroy all arrogant minds toward them. Moreover, in this way, one's own teaching of the Dharma will also have no obstructions. Actually, a respectful mind, along with some prayers to Guru Rinpoche, and frequently practicing some emptiness teachings oneself, those who practicing great compassion, there will be no adverse conditions during their practice. If you don't frequently practice and pray, if you're in a state of mere appearance every day, if you still seem quite good on the surface, but actually, if your mind hasn't integrated with the Dharma at all, indeed it's very frightening. There will definitely be obstacles. Sometimes the precepts are not complete, sometimes the practice is not complete, sometimes when doing anything, adverse conditions pile up, especially many. Actually, many adverse conditions are related to our own firm mind, related to our own devout mind. If you frequently have a firm mind and sincerely pray, many adverse conditions should vanish like smoke and clouds. This is the teaching of the third ease in practice. Those who practice the third ease in practice, the wise of this world, will also constantly protect you. For a good person, many people will also frequently be very helpful to you. We can also often see this in daily life as well. For a good person, their friends, the sentient beings in our human realm, there are especially many who assist and help them. So for those who practice wholeheartedly in ease, those who practice ease as we taught above, there are innumerable sentient beings, not only humans, but all devas, all asuras. Originally, they were reborn as asuras, but asuras are sentient beings as well. Sometimes, if you truly practice ease, many of their friends are asuras, and the asuras are also especially good to them. Honored by innumerable sentient beings, therefore, innumerable sentient beings will also be especially respectful toward them. Okay, we'll end here for today. The third ease in practice is complete.
Om